The day began like any other, sunlight streaming through the windows of homes and offices across the globe. But that morning, a dark shadow fell over the bustling cities of Earth. A colossal alien mothership, massive enough to eclipse entire skyscrapers, hung ominously in the sky, its metallic surface reflecting the morning sun like a harbinger of doom. Dr. Maya Chen stood in a crowded control room deep beneath the surface of the Pacific, her heart racing as she watched the live feed of the mothership on multiple screens. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, a mix of anxiety and determination coursing through her veins. Around her, scientists and military personnel exchanged anxious glances, their faces pale under the stark fluorescent lights. Suddenly, a booming voice echoed through the airwaves, cutting through the murmurs of disbelief. People of Earth, Commander Vrax's voice crackled over every screen, his visage distorted but undeniably imposing. You are now subjects of the Zephyran Empire. You have 24 hours to surrender your autonomy or face annihilation. A collective gasp filled the control room. Maya felt the weight of despair pressed down on her chest, but she forced herself to focus. The Zephyrans were technologically advanced, far beyond anything humanity had encountered. Panic spread through the ranks of the EDC, Earth Defense Coalition, as they scrambled to comprehend the implications of Vrax's threat. What do they want? Someone whispered, eyes wide with fear. Maya cleared her throat, gathering her thoughts. Resources, probably. They've likely detected the ecological degradation of their own planet and are seeking to exploit ours. As the realization sank in, the room erupted into chaos. Voices raised in anger and fear filled the air, but Maya's mind raced with possibilities. She had studied gravitational physics for years, and she recalled something unsettling. The Zephyran's ships relied on artificial gravity. If they could manipulate gravitational fields, perhaps they could disrupt the alien technology. Listen, Maya shouted over the din. If we can analyze their technology, we might find a way to fight back. They're vulnerable, and we can use that to our advantage. Her fervor momentarily quieted the room. Eyes turned to her, some filled with skepticism, others with a flicker of hope. She could see the gears turning in their minds. Dr. Chen, you're suggesting we confront a superior force with physics. Colonel Anderson, a grizzled veteran, raised an eyebrow, skepticism etched on his face. Yes, if we can create localized gravitational waves, we might be able to destabilize their ships and technology, she argued, her voice gaining momentum. We can't just sit here and wait for them to wipe us out. A murmur of agreement rippled through the group, and Maya seized the moment. We need a team of engineers, physicists, and military strategists. We can reverse engineer what we gather from their tech. If we act fast, we can give humanity a fighting chance. Colonel Anderson's expression shifted. We'll need to be ready for anything. If we're going to do this, we need to move now. As plans were laid out, urgency permeated the air. Teams were formed, and everyone began their tasks. Maya felt a surge of adrenaline as she mobilized her team, her mind racing with equations and theories. They would take the fight to the Zephyrans, not as victims, but as warriors. Outside, the world teetered on the brink of panic, but within the control room, hope began to flicker. Humanity had faced extinction before, and now it was time to rise up once more. The clock was ticking, and they would not go down without a fight. The hours blurred into a frantic whirlwind of activity as the Earth Defense Coalition, EDT, mobilized. Dr. Maya Chen stood at the forefront, surrounded by engineers and military personnel, the tension palpable. Whiteboards were covered in hastily scrawled equations. while monitors flickered with images of the alien mothership looming ominously over Earth. Time was not on their side. Dr. Chen, a young engineer named Lewis, called, his voice tinged with urgency. "We've isolated some data from the drone we recovered. It seems they're using a highly concentrated energy source to maintain their artificial gravity. If we can disrupt that, it could destabilize their entire fleet." Maya's heart raced. Can we amplify the gravitational waves enough to target that energy source? Lewis nodded, a determined look in his eyes. "We can try, but we'll need a large power output to create the kind of waves necessary." Maya took a deep breath, formulating a plan. "Then we'll need to harness every resource we can find. I want every available generator in the area diverted to our cause. This is a desperate gamble, but it's our best shot." As the team sprang into action, Maya felt the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. Outside the control room, cities buzzed with fear and confusion. News networks reported on the alien threat, and countless civilians were caught between panic and disbelief. Maya had to ensure that humanity could strike back before it was too late. Meanwhile, Commander Vrax surveyed the world from his command center aboard the mothership. He turned to his subordinates, a mixture of impatience and irritation etched on his face. "Why have we not yet neutralized the humans? They are disorganized and weak. It should be a simple task." "Commander," one of the officers replied, glancing nervously at the massive screens displaying Earth's cities. "They are proving more resourceful than we anticipated. Their technology may not match ours, but they are displaying unexpected ingenuity." Vrax narrowed his eyes, sensing the urgency in the air. "Deploy scout drones to find the source of their resistance. We cannot allow this insolence to continue." Back on Earth, the EDC faced a new challenge as Vrax's drones began to swarm like locusts, scanning for threats. Maya watched the live feeds, anxiety creeping in. "We need to gather intel before they find us," she urged, her voice steady but laced with tension. "We can't let them know what we're planning." Just then, a drone crashed into a nearby building, its metallic form smoking and sparking. "We've got to retrieve that data," Maya shouted, rallying her team. It could hold vital information on their technology. Without hesitation, a small team of EDC soldiers and scientists set out to secure the downed drone. As they maneuvered through the debris-strewn streets, Maya felt adrenaline coursing through her veins. This was it, the first real strike against their oppressors. As they approached the crash site, a chilling realization hit her. They weren't alone. Zephyran soldiers, their sleek armor glinting in the sunlight, had already arrived, scanning the area with their advanced weaponry. "Get down!" Maya yelled as a beam of energy scorched the ground where they had just stood. The team dove for cover, their hearts pounding in unison. "What now?" a soldier whispered, fear flashing in his eyes. Maya peered around the corner, her mind racing. "We have to distract them. If we can create a diversion, we can access the drone before it's too late." With a quick nod from her team, they began to formulate a plan, setting up makeshift explosives using scavenged materials. As they prepared for the impending confrontation, the weight of their mission hung heavy in the air. The countdown to surrender loomed ominously, and for the first time, they were not simply waiting for doom. They were about to strike back. In that moment of clarity, Maya felt a surge of resolve. Humanity was resilient, and they would prove it, against all odds. The streets of Chicago crackled with tension as Maya and her team readied themselves for their first offensive against the Zephyran forces. The downed drone, now surrounded by enemies, held the key to humanity's hope. They couldn't afford to fail. On my mark, Maya whispered, her heart pounding in sync with the thrum of adrenaline. She glanced at her team, each face a mask of determination and fear. They were ready to take their stand. 3, 2, 1, now. Maya shouted, and the world erupted into chaos. The makeshift explosives detonated with a deafening roar, sending shockwaves through the air. Flames shot up, momentarily blinding the Zephyrin soldiers, and chaos ensued. Go, go, go! Maya yelled, leading the charge into the fray. The team sprinted toward the wrecked drone, weaving through the smoke and debris. In the midst of the turmoil, Maya spotted the metallic glint of the drone's components, its data core glimmering like a beacon of hope. Just as they reached the drone, a beam of energy sliced through the air, narrowly missing Maya and striking a nearby wall. She ducked instinctively, her heart racing. "Cover me!" She shouted to the soldiers behind her, who instinctively formed a protective circle around her. One soldier, Private Petal, opened fire with his rifle, the weapon's loud cracks punctuating the chaos. The Zephyrins were regrouping, and Maya felt the urgency mount. She knelt beside the drone, frantically working to pry open the access panel. Come on," she muttered, her fingers shaking as she input commands into the damaged interface. The screen flickered, displaying corrupted data, but she knew there was valuable intel hidden somewhere. She could almost feel the Zephyrins closing in. Patal's voice broke through her concentration. "Maya, they're flanking us." He fired again, hitting one of the advancing Zephyrins, but more were on the way. "Almost there," she urged, sweat beading on her forehead. With one last desperate push, she managed to extract the data core, clutching it tightly as she glanced up to see the enemy advancing. "Retreat! Fall back!" Maya shouted, adrenaline fueling her voice as they turned to run. The team sprinted back down the alley, the sounds of combat echoing behind them. Just as they reached a more open area, a deafening crash reverberated through the streets as a Zephyrin ship hovered overhead. It was searching for them, its powerful searchlights cutting through the haze. "Over here!" A soldier shouted, leading them into a narrow alley. They ducked behind a dumpster, hearts pounding, breaths coming in quick bursts. Maya's hands trembled as she held the data core, the weight of their discovery heavy in her pocket. "Did we get it?" Patal asked, his voice a mix of excitement and fear. "Yes," Maya replied, her heart swelling with pride. "We need to analyze it now. If we can find out how to exploit their weaknesses, we can turn the tide." Suddenly, a sound echoed down the alley, the low hum of approaching Zephyrin troops. Maya's stomach dropped. "We have to move. Now." As they slipped away from the danger, Maya couldn't shake the feeling of exhilaration mixed with dread. They had struck the first blow, but it had come at a cost. She had seen the fear in her team's eyes, felt the weight of their resolve. Once back in the safety of the EDC's underground command center, they quickly connected the data core to the mainframe. The room buzzed with energy, anticipation crackling in the air. Scientists and engineers crowded around the screens, eager to extract the valuable information. As lines of alien code flooded the monitors, Maya felt a renewed sense of purpose. They had taken the first step in humanity's fight for survival. It was just the beginning, and she knew they had to prepare for what was to come. But deep down, a flicker of doubt lingered. They had poked the beast, and the beast would not remain dormant for long. Yet, in that moment, hope surged within her. Humanity was resilient, and together, they would rise to face the challenge ahead. In the dimly lit command center, tension crackled like electricity as Maya and her team pored over the data extracted from the alien drone. The screens flickered with rows of complex symbols and unfamiliar schematics, each a piece of the puzzle they desperately needed to solve. "Look at this," Lewis said, pointing at a particular section of code that had lit up in bright green. "It's a schematic of their gravity generator. This part here," he added, zooming in, "appears to be the core. If we can disrupt this, we could destabilize their entire fleet." Maya's pulse quickened. "Can we build something to exploit this weakness?" "It'll take a monumental effort," Lewis replied, his brow furrowing in concentration. "But if we reconfigure our gravity wave device, we might be able to target their generators directly. We need the power of multiple generators to pull it off." Maya's heart raced at the thought of taking the fight to the mothership itself. "Then let's do it. We don't have time to waste." As the team sprang into action, a series of alerts blared through the command center. Maya's heart sank as she looked up to see a red light flashing on the main screen. "What's happening?" she demanded. A soldier rushed over, breathless. "Scout drones are approaching the base. They detected our activity." "Damn it," Maya cursed, glancing at the maps of their surroundings. They were running out of time. "We need to secure the area. If they breach our defenses, we'll lose everything." Under her command, the soldiers began to fortify their position, barricading entrances and setting up makeshift defenses. The sound of heavy footsteps echoed outside, sending a wave of dread through the room. As Maya and her team worked furiously to complete the modifications to their gravity device, the atmosphere shifted. Anxiety hung thick in the air, but it was tinged with something else: determination. They had tasted victory, however small, and they were not about to back down. With every second that ticked by, the sound of the Zephyron drones grew louder, their mechanical whirring echoing ominously through the concrete corridors. "We're almost there," Lewis shouted, his fingers dancing over the controls. Maya's gaze flickered to the digital clock counting down the time until Vrax's ultimatum expired. They had less than 2 hours left. "Hurry," she urged, her voice steady despite the rising panic. Finally, with a triumphant beep, the device powered up, glowing a brilliant blue. "It's ready," Lewis exclaimed, a mix of relief and excitement in his eyes. "Good," Maya replied, adrenaline coursing through her veins. "We need to launch it now before the drones breach our defenses." Just then, the command center shook as an explosion erupted outside, debris raining down. "They're here," someone yelled, panic rising. "Stay calm," Maya shouted. "We can't lose focus. We fight for our lives and for our planet." With a surge of determination, they began to set up the gravity wave device, positioning it toward the city's skyline where the mothership loomed ominously. The soldiers took defensive positions, ready to protect their scientists at all costs. As the device powered up, a low hum filled the room, vibrating through the floor. Maya could feel the energy building, a palpable force of hope and defiance. Outside, the sounds of battle erupted. Blasts of energy echoed as Zephyron troops engaged in a fierce firefight with the EDC soldiers. "Here they come," a soldier shouted as the doors burst open, Zephyron soldiers pouring into the command center. "Now," Maya commanded, her heart racing. With a final twist of the control panel, she activated the device. A bright wave of energy erupted from the device, washing over the command center and out into the streets. For a moment, everything stood still, the air shimmering with potential. Then, with an explosive roar, the gravity wave rippled outward, targeting the mothership's gravity generators. The ground trembled as the device unleashed its full power. Outside, Zephyrin ships began to wobble and lose altitude, their artificial gravity faltering. Maya watched in awe as the tide of battle began to shift. The confidence in her team surged. They had struck a critical blow against their oppressors. The realization washed over her. Humanity could fight back, and they were no longer helpless. But as cheers erupted from her team, Maya knew this was only the beginning. They had opened Pandora's box, and the Zephyrins would retaliate with everything they had. The fight was far from over, but for the first time, hope shone brightly amid the chaos. The shockwave from the gravity wave device rippled through the streets of Chicago, sending Zephyrin soldiers stumbling. The mothership, once a symbol of despair, now seemed vulnerable as it listed precariously in the sky. Maya could hardly believe what they had accomplished, but there was no time to celebrate. The Zephyrins would regroup, and they needed to prepare for a counterattack. "Keep firing." Maya yelled, her voice cutting through the chaos. EDC soldiers engaged the staggered Zephyrins, their spirits lifted by the unexpected turn in battle. Maya turned to her team, urgency flooding her thoughts. "We need to analyze the results of the gravity wave. If we can understand what worked, we can refine our approach for the next strike." "Right," Lewis replied, fingers flying over his laptop as he pulled up data from the device. "We need to find out how long the mothership can remain destabilized. If we can maintain pressure, we might be able to force them to retreat." Just then, an urgent shout rang out from one of the soldiers stationed at the door. "Commander, more Zephyrin troops are advancing. They're coming in full force." Maya felt her stomach drop. The aliens had recovered faster than anticipated. She glanced at the monitors, seeing images of Zephyrin reinforcements descending from the mothership. Their sleek ships buzzed overhead like angry hornets, preparing to strike back with a vengeance. "Prepare the gravity wave device for another shot," Maya ordered, adrenaline surging. "We need to push them back and buy ourselves time." As her team worked to recalibrate the device, the atmosphere in the command center shifted. The initial exhilaration of their victory began to wane, replaced by a heavy weight of dread. The sounds of combat outside intensified, punctuated by the cries of soldiers and the ominous whir of alien weapons. "Dr. Chen." A voice called out from the back. It was Patel, his face drawn with concern. "If we fire again, we risk overloading the device. We need more power to maintain the wave long enough to have an impact." Maya's mind raced. What do we have? "We could divert energy from the emergency generators, but it's risky," he replied. "If we overload them, we could lose everything. Our power, our defense, and our chance to fight back." The weight of the decision pressed heavily on Maya's shoulders. "We can't back down now. Humanity is counting on us. We have to make this work, no matter the cost." As the team worked frantically, Maya turned to the soldiers, her voice steady. "Listen up. We're on the brink of a major victory. This is our moment to show the Zephyrins that we will not go quietly. We need to hold the line while we prepare the device for another launch." The soldiers nodded, rallying together. A sense of camaraderie blossomed in the chaos. Their fear transformed into a collective determination. With the gravity wave device recalibrated, Maya watched as Lewis made the final adjustments. "We're ready," he shouted, the strain in his voice evident. "Now." Maya commanded, her heart racing. The device come to life, and she felt the energy building. The soldiers braced themselves, weapons at the ready as Maya focused on the target, the descending Zephyrin ships. The device fired, sending another wave of energy surging into the sky. For a moment, the world held its breath as the wave collided with the alien vessels. A brilliant flash illuminated the battlefield, followed by a deafening crash as the ships began to lose their grip on the atmosphere. One by one, they spiraled down, helpless against the force of the gravitational waves. Cheers erupted among the EDC troops as the tide of battle began to shift once more. But amidst the elation, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that they had only scratched the surface. The Zephyrins were fierce and relentless. They would not simply retreat. "Stay vigilant." Maya shouted, rallying her team. "We have to keep pushing. They're not done yet." As they braced for the next wave of alien reinforcements, Maya felt a surge of hope mixed with trepidation. The unity they had forged in the chaos was stronger than she had ever imagined. If they could harness that strength, there was no limit to what they could achieve. Together, they would show the Zephyrins that humanity was not just a fleeting presence on this planet. They were a force to be reckoned with. The atmosphere in the command center crackled with tension as Maya and her team monitored the unfolding chaos in Chicago. They had gained ground, but the Zephyrins were regrouping, and a more coordinated assault was inevitable. They needed to take the fight to the mothership before it could mount a full counteroffensive. "Maya," Lewis said, his eyes glued to the screens. "We've intercepted communications indicating that the Zephyrins are planning a major offensive in New York. They believe that if they can crush us there, they can demoralize the entire planet." Maya's mind raced. "Then we can't let that happen. We have to mobilize immediately and get to New York before they do." "Time is not on our side," Colonel Anderson added, his voice grave. "We'll need every available soldier and resource. If they hit New York hard, it could shatter what little morale we've built." Maya nodded, a fire igniting within her. "We'll coordinate a strategic counterattack. We can use the gravity wave device to create chaos among their ranks, just as we did in Chicago." Within minutes, the command center transformed into a hive of activity. Soldiers gathered supplies, engineers loaded equipment onto vehicles, and Maya's team prepared the gravity wave device for transport. As they raced against time, she felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on her. Once they arrived in New York, the skyline was a blend of breathtaking architecture and chaos. Zephyrin ships loomed overhead, their dark silhouettes contrasting sharply against the vibrant cityscape. The streets below were filled with civilians fleeing the impending onslaught. "Get everyone to safety," Maya commanded, her heart aching for those caught in the crossfire. "We need to set up a perimeter and protect the civilians." As they established a defensive line, the first wave of Zephyrin troops descended. Maya felt the ground tremble beneath her feet as energy beams lit up the sky. Soldiers fought valiantly, but the enemy was relentless. "Now's our chance." Maya yelled, gesturing toward the gravity wave device being set up on a nearby rooftop. "If we can create a gravitational distortion, we can disrupt their formations." The soldiers rallied, pushing forward while Maya directed them. The device hummed ominously as they prepped it for activation. "Make sure to aim it at the center of their formation. We have to maximize the impact." As the gravity wave device powered up, Maya glanced at the battlefield, her heart racing. She saw the Zephyrins advancing, confident and ruthless. Just as she felt a surge of doubt, the device began to glow with a brilliant blue light. "Fire it up," she commanded, determination surging within her. The wave shot forth, a brilliant arc of energy that crackled with potential. It collided with the Zephyrin ranks, causing chaos as their ships buckled and spiraled out of control. For a brief moment, the battlefield erupted in confusion as the alien forces were thrown into disarray. "Keep pushing," Maya shouted, her voice carrying over the chaos. "We can't let them recover." The soldiers fought fiercely, adrenaline propelling them forward. Maya felt the tide turning, the momentum shifting in their favor. With every Zephyrin ship that fell, their spirits lifted. But just as victory seemed within reach, Vrax himself appeared, his imposing figure descending from the mothership. The moment he landed, a chilling silence swept over the battlefield. Enough. He roared, his voice echoing across the streets. You think you can defy the Zephyrin Empire? You are mere insects, and I will crush you. With a wave of his hand, the Zephyrin forces regrouped, the shockwave from his presence rallying them back into formation. Maya's heart sank. They had pushed the enemy, but they had also awoken a formidable leader. Colonel, we need to keep our focus, she shouted, her mind bracing for a plan. We have to distract Vrax while we continue the assault. With a renewed sense of urgency, they launched another wave from the gravity device, targeting the ships around Vrax. As the energy crackled, Maya could see the alien commander falter, but she knew it would take more than a single strike to defeat him. As they fought, a new wave of determination swept over the EDC soldiers. They had already defied the odds once, and they would do it again. Maya knew that with each battle, humanity was not only fighting for survival, they were forging an identity, uniting against a common enemy. The fight was far from over, but with each moment, they grew stronger. Together, they would show Vrax that humanity was not so easily crushed. In the heart of New York, amid the chaos of war, they would rise to meet the challenge head-on. The battlefield in New York was a cacophony of sounds, explosions, shouts, and the crackling of energy beams. Vrax loomed ahead, his presence casting a shadow of dread over the EDC forces. Maya could feel the weight of the moment. This was their last chance to turn the tide of the war. Focus on Vrax, she shouted to her team, her voice rising above the chaos. If we can take him down, the Zephyrins will falter. With determination coursing through her veins, she led the charge forward. As the gravity wave device hummed ominously behind them, she sensed it was their last resort. They needed to act swiftly. The enemy was regrouping, and Vrax's fury was palpable. "Maya!" shouted Lewis, sprinting to catch up. "I've modified the device to channel an even more intense wave. It's risky, but it might be our only shot." "Do it," Maya commanded, adrenaline surging through her. "But we need to keep Vrax distracted long enough for you to set it up." They closed in on the alien commander, who was now channeling energy for another devastating attack. The ground trembled beneath Maya's feet as she shouted, "Everyone, spread out. We need to create confusion." As the soldiers fanned out, a torrent of energy burst from Vrax's hands, slamming into the ground where they had just stood. The force of the blast sent debris flying, but the EDC soldiers rallied, unleashing a barrage of fire toward him. Vrax's shield flickered as bullets and energy beams struck it, but he was far from defeated. "You think you can defeat me?" he snarled, his voice laced with contempt. "I am the might of the Zephyrin Empire." Maya felt a rush of fury. Not today. She yelled, firing a concentrated blast directly at his shield. It sparked and flickered, the tension in the air palpable. "Now, Lewis," she shouted, glancing back at him. He was working feverishly on the gravity wave device, fingers flying over the controls, sweat beading on his forehead. "Just a little longer," he shouted back, his voice strained. Vrax unleashed another energy wave, sending EDC soldiers flying. Maya sprinted forward, ducking and weaving as she approached the alien commander, determined to close the distance. "We can't give up," she urged her comrades. "We fight for our homes, our families." With renewed determination, the soldiers surged alongside her, firing at Vrax as they closed in. The air crackled with tension, and Maya felt the gravity of the situation weigh heavily on her. "Hold the line," Colonel Anderson yelled, rallying the troops as they pushed against Vrax's energy blasts. They had come too far to turn back now. As the last of the energy beams from Vrax's hands faltered, Lewis shouted, "I'm ready. Get back." Maya barely had time to process his command before she turned to lead the retreat. "Fall back," she yelled, signaling the soldiers to create a barrier around Lewis. The soldiers retreated a few steps, forming a protective ring as Lewis activated the gravity wave device. A low hum filled the air, building in intensity. Vrax, sensing the shift, turned his attention to Lewis, fury igniting in his eyes. "You will not succeed," he roared, launching a final wave of energy toward them. "No," Maya shouted, and Lewis pressed the button. The gravity wave erupted, a brilliant beam of energy that surged forth with unprecedented force. It collided with Vrax's energy blast, creating a blinding explosion of light that enveloped the battlefield. Maya shielded her eyes as the energy surged outward, sweeping through the ranks of the Zephyron forces. The shockwaves shattered Vrax's shield completely, sending him staggering backward. "Push! Now!" Maya cried, feeling the surge of power behind her. The EDC soldiers, emboldened by the wave's impact, surged forward. The combination of their energy and the gravity wave began to dismantle Vrax's defenses. He fought valiantly, but the tides had turned against him. "Stand together!" Colonel Anderson bellowed, leading the charge as they surrounded Vrax. "We finish this." With a final rallying cry, they unleashed everything they had. The concentrated fire from their weapons struck Vrax, and he howled in agony, his strength waning. Maya felt the heat of battle around her, her resolve unyielding. This was their last stand, and she wouldn't let them down. As Vrax staggered, the weight of their collective determination bore down upon him. In a blinding flash, the gravity wave surged through the remaining Zephyron ranks, breaking their formation and sending them scattering. Vrax, now vulnerable, stumbled and fell to his knees, his arrogance replaced by desperation. "This cannot be," he gasped, struggling to rise. But the energy around him intensified, the gravity wave pushing him down. "We are not your prey," Maya declared, stepping forward with resolve. "We are humanity." With one final push, the gravity wave overwhelmed him, the energy ripping through the remnants of his power. The alien commander collapsed, defeated. Cheers erupted from the EDC soldiers as the remnants of the Zephyron forces began to flee, their will broken. Maya stood amidst the chaos, breathing heavily, the weight of the moment settling over her. They had fought for their survival and emerged victorious. The battlefield erupted with chaos as the gravity wave surged toward Vrax, its brilliant energy cascading against his flickering shield. For a moment, the alien commander faltered, eyes wide with disbelief. Maya seized the opportunity, adrenaline propelling her forward as she led her team through the smoke and debris. "Don't let up," she shouted, rallying her soldiers. "This is our moment." The EDC soldiers surged ahead, their morale boosted by the sight of their enemy wavering. Vrax, visibly shaken, struggled to maintain his defenses against the onslaught. Maya could see the fear in his eyes, a feeling she had never thought she would witness in the heart of an alien conqueror. As they closed the distance, Vrax unleashed a torrent of energy in a desperate attempt to repel them. "You will pay for this insolence," he roared, his voice laced with rage. But the beam, though powerful, lacked the intensity it had held moments before. Maya ducked as the energy blast whizzed past her, a shower of sparks illuminating the darkening sky. "Flank him," she yelled, urging her team to split up, moving around Vrax's weakening shield. They could feel the momentum shift in their favor, but it was critical not to let their guard down. "Keep firing," Colonel Anderson ordered, joining Maya at the front line. They focused their rifles on Vrax, unleashing a barrage of fire that struck the shield with every ounce of energy they had left. As the blasts hit, the shield flickered dangerously, and Maya could see cracks forming in its surface. "We're getting through," she shouted, her heart racing. With a final push, Lewis and his team recalibrated the gravity wave device, channeling more energy from the grid. "I can amplify it one last time," Lewis called, his voice strained with effort. "But I'll need cover." "Hold the line," Maya commanded, determination igniting her spirit. They had come too far to falter now. Just then, Vrax unleashed a powerful pulse from his hands, sending EDC soldiers sprawling. Maya ducked just in time, but she felt the heat of the blast singe her shoulder. Pain shot through her, but she gritted her teeth, forcing herself to focus. "Lewis," she shouted. "Now." Lewis activated the device, sending an intense surge of energy forward. The gravity wave crashed against Vrax's shield, and this time it shattered, sending ripples through the air. The alien commander staggered back, clearly unprepared for the full force of their assault. "Now, finish him," Maya shouted, charging forward alongside Anderson and the soldiers. They poured everything they had into their weapons, determined to bring the alien leader down. As Vrax struggled to regain his composure, the combined fire from the EDC struck him directly. He howled in rage, energy sparking around him, but it was too late. The weight of their unified force overwhelmed him, and with a final defiant roar, he collapsed to the ground. A stunned silence fell over the battlefield. The Zephyran troops, seeing their leader defeated, faltered, their confidence crumbling. The EDC soldiers, battered but unbroken, erupted in cheers, their voices ringing with the thrill of victory. But as Maya stood there, she felt a mix of triumph and sorrow. The cost had been heavy, too heavy. She glanced around at the fallen soldiers, the injured, and the devastation left in the wake of their struggle. This victory would not come without sacrifices. "Gather the wounded," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "We need to regroup and tend to those who fought for our survival." As they worked to stabilize the battlefield, the remnants of the Zephyran fleet began to retreat, their once formidable presence dwindling in the face of humanity's resolve. Maya felt a bittersweet pride swell within her. They had shown the Zephyrans that humanity could unite against oppression, that they were capable of fighting back. In the aftermath of the battle, as the sun began to rise over the city, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink, Maya knew that the world would never be the same. They had forged a new identity in the face of adversity, proving that they were not merely victims of circumstance but warriors of their fate. As she surveyed the horizon, she felt a sense of hope budding within her. Humanity had faced the abyss and emerged, battered but not broken. Together, they would rebuild, stronger and more united than ever. And if the Zephyrans dared to return, they would find a planet ready to stand and fight. Maya took a deep breath, the weight of the past mixing with the promise of the future. This was just the beginning. Together, they would rise, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. But as the adrenaline faded, the reality of their sacrifice washed over her. They had faced the abyss, and though they had won, the cost had been high. Together, they had forged a path forward, united against the darkness that had threatened their world. The dawn broke over New York, the sun illuminating the battlefield, a testament to their courage. In that moment, Maya knew they had ignited a spark of hope that would guide humanity in the days to come. Together, they would rise from the ashes, ready to build a brighter future.